Hello everyone, I am Director Lin Chao. Today, we're going to talk about carbon neutrality. That's a hot word this year, still hot. Last week, Tesla blew up that it earned 518 million US dollars from selling carbon credits in the first quarter. This has opened up the international vision of students with a daily salary of less than 2.08 million. It also illustrates the ferocity of the global low carbon economy, and this year's 14th five-year plan of the country's green economy is also a top priority. Chapters 37, 38, and 39, they're all talking about it. It can be said that 2021 is the first year that the global green and low carbon economy will start competition. People's Bank of China Governor Yi Gang stated at the China Development Forum in March that China's total investment in carbon neutrality would exceed 100 trillion yuan in the future. We do this first to save the planet, to be honest. In the 800 years before the Industrial Revolution, the carbon dioxide content in the Earth's atmosphere has been maintained at 240 parts per million. The fluctuation of the average line and the bottom of the line has risen from 240 parts per million to the current 417 parts per million after the Industrial Revolution, and it has never fallen back. This has caused the global average temperature to continue to rise, which in turn has led to an increase in pests, rising seas, and expanding deserts, such as multiple problems, such as extreme climates. Now the consensus of the major economies in the world is that the climate problem is really serious. Therefore, China's green transition must first be undertaken to assume the responsibility of a major country. But it is a deeper level of carbon neutrality that is not only an environmental issue, but also a trade issue. Because of the first mover advantage, the United States and Europe have achieved carbon peaks as early as 2010, while China is a developing country. We have not reached the peak until today. Under the wave of the Green Revolution, developed countries that have already landed ashore in the future will start to increase carbon tariffs continuously. This makes the products with high carbon emissions in developing countries less competitive, which is tantamount to opening up a new dimension of trade competition. So China cannot just be hit by dimensionality reduction, and further carbon trading is still forming a new carbon financial market. In the future, new energy will restructure the global monetary system. So it seems that there is no doubt that the carbon neutrality has far-reaching significance for China's future strategic precision. So even if we have done everything in the field of chip communication and digitalization today, as long as we lose the green revolution, we cannot become a first-class country. This is the reason why China is fully embracing the greening of a street today. However, from this picture, we can also see that China has a very large rate in 2030. This means that if we do not make sufficient preparations from now to China's carbon neutrality after 2030, reconciliation will become an impossible task. So today, we must use greater and faster investment than Europe and United States to catch up. This also makes carbon neutrality the longest, most certain, and largest industrial track in China in the future. It will create countless new companies and industries, redistribute a lot of wealth, and change almost every aspect of our food, clothing, housing, and transportation. In order to understand this problem in depth, we need to analyze it. First of all, since it is to be carbon neutral, then everything is about carbon reduction. There are three paths in this regard. The first path is electricity, which is the power of the fuel industry, and the low carbonization of the power industry. These two forces will jointly affect the three major areas: travel, housing, and digitalization. The second path is material. It is the low carbonization of materials, which will affect the four major areas of clothing, housing, buildings, and industries. The third path is agriculture. That is, the key to low carbon agriculture is food. After all, people rely on food as their heaven. In the Peripheral Electric Material Farmers Associations, the life of every ordinary person will be reconstructed through the major areas of clothing, food, housing, and transportation, and a huge carbon finance will be formed in the central government. The market affects the operation of every enterprise and country. First of all, let's talk about the two words of future carbon trading and carbon tax in the carbon market. We may often hear them. Let's talk about carbon trading. Simply put, if you reduce carbon emissions, you will earn points. These points can be sold to companies that cannot reduce carbon emissions. In this regard, the European Union established the carbon market as early as 2005, and China has also started trading trials in 2013. Currently, the price of carbon trading in China is stable at 15 to 40 yuan per ton. Trading is also not very active. The European Union and California are about 100 yuan per ton. The market is very active. For example, Tesla has actually made more than 3.3 billion US dollars on carbon trading. This means that China's carbon trading market has huge room for growth in the future. Carbon taxes are easier to understand from your production process. If you have more carbon emissions, there will be more taxes. Then your prices will have to go up. If there are fewer people to buy, you have to change. This is the great power of tax regulation. The future will be driven by carbon trading and carbon taxes. Many traditional industries will usher in earth-shaking changes. For example, carbon tax will profoundly change agriculture. This field may be the most difficult industry in the world to decarbonize because it is very fragmented. It also involves the most ingrained dietary habits of humans. Take beef as an example. Cattle are typical anti-emergency animals. They produce a large amount of methane during their digestion. This kind of animal accounts for more than a quarter of the greenhouse gas emissions of the entire agriculture sector. This picture is given in the Towards 2060 Carbon Neutrality report released by Capital this year. From this, we can see the protein per 100 grams of beef. From the corresponding greenhouse gas emissions, beef is far ahead of the second place. Lamb and prawns are 8 times that of pork. This may mean that beef will be subject to high carbon taxes in the future. Maybe by 2060, people who can afford beef will get a good name. High Collar Capital lists 5 new opportunities for agricultural decarbonization in the report. Here's the difference. They are plant protein precision agriculture gene editing, aquaculture, and vertical agriculture plant egg noodles. Their origins are that they produce protein pollution such as peas and nuts per 100 grams of protein. Only 0.4 and 0.3 kilograms of greenhouse gas emissions are 1/100th of that of beef, which means that the market of plant-based foods and beverages is huge in the future. For example, the sudden popularity of oat milk in the past 2 years is just the beginning of everything. Precision agriculture will rise with the increasing carbon tax on high carbon substances such as fertilizers and pesticides. In the future, technologies such as drone sensor satellite data automation will be used. Improving the efficiency of fertilizers and pesticides will become a major trend. What gene editing does is to improve the grain production capacity per unit of carbon emissions by improving seeds. However, there has been controversy in this field. The reason why aquaculture will develop is because the carbon density in the production process of fish is much lower than that of beef and mutton. These areas are more fortunate than the average person's lives.